Hello everyone, welcome to another storytelling. This is going to be recounting the same years that the first Storytime video took place in. So to share even more reasons why I deserve a better social life in my early teens, this video is meant to give more details and examples that would have made the first video a little too long. I'm going to set this into chapters, so this is going to be the first way that it's going to be categorized by things that were not highlighted in the first video. So here we go. Gatekeeping. Of course, if you're familiar with the term of gatekeeping, it hasn't become relevant until around the 2020s for me, and I never knew about this term until getting to those years and starting to piece together that some of the things and actions that happened did pretty much fall into gatekeeping way back then when I reflected on some of those memories. And this involves people that I'm going to be labeling throughout the storytelling. So for gatekeeping, this is going to be referring to someone that I'm going to say was the leader of this friend group of mine at the time. It just seemed to me back then that he had the most outspoken presence among all of them. So that's what I'm going to be referring to him by to make it simple. So for the first example, there was a time when I had a Windows phone at that time when all my friends basically had Android or iPhone, and they shared with me what kind of apps they had on their phones. And because I was someone who had a Windows phone just because I thought it would be interesting, I just stuck with it and made the best out of it when I found out it was quite limited in the apps you can get and official apps that are on there, where it was very lacking. So when he shared to me about the kind of social apps he uses, I got pretty inspired to be like, oh, I use Instagram, I'll see what else I can use. And he was someone who also used iFunny. It sounds kind of silly to mention that now, but at the time, he made it seem like such a fun app. And the way he talked about it, he said, oh, I have all these friends on this app, and we all share and circulate like posts, new posts, and memes and stuff to each other. And I thought, okay, that sounds fun. I want to get it too. And then he shut me down right there and told me, no, if you get this app, everybody's going to hate on you. Everybody's going to tweet you like shit. You're not going to like it. You're going to have a bad time on there. Just don't do it. And back then I was generally confused. I was like, why would he tell me this when he used it and has so much fun with it? And at some point I thought, you know what? Forget what he's saying. I'm going to make one because it's available for me on my phone and I'm going to get it. And eventually, at the lunch table, I announced to my friends, hey guys, I have an iFunny account now. And I could see that he was very disappointed. He had this look of disappointment to me, and he just thought I was making a really, really bad mistake that I was going to regret. And that's the thing about teenagers. Back then, you don't know what their deal is and why they got to be so stuck up on presenting something to you that they want you to believe as their way being best. This next one is going to be talking about the whole state of gaming at the time. In the first video, I did talk about how I had to play offline games and I could never enjoy online experiences. And that was the same thing for actually trying to get games on the laptop I used. That was a family laptop at the time. I had to make sure that my phone hotspot could allow me to download games that could be played on Steam and then be able to enjoy them on the laptop and just play single player experiences for what it was worth. And at the time, I was also trying to play Fallout 4 in the year it came out. I still not actually played the game, but at the time, I wanted to try and get it on the laptop, and it just would not be able to download and finish. And I was someone who was stuck with not being able to play a game that I purchased and having to tell my friends about that if I did. And one time I was texting the leader and telling him about how I couldn't even play it, and I remember him texting me back a photo of him enjoying Fallout 4 in the meantime on his PS4. And the photo was of him posing with the game in a very teasing manner and telling me that he was about to have fun with it. It's not as bad as the first one, but it does show that there was some underlying mean-spirited energy being thrown towards me for not being able to enjoy something at the same time that someone else is able to have all the fun with it that they want. So now we go to the next chapter, which is opinions. Recounting these events seems a little more cruel to me in how they were done, because what I'm going to be referring to in this chapter is going to be sharing that passionate energy I had for wanting to make my own things, like I talked about in the first video. And the first one is about drawing again. Last time I did talk to you guys about the things I drew, and sharing those things from my notebook paper to my friends was something that I was always really hyped about and looked forward to doing. And it was the same thing with any of the things I showed off, but to explain that is to say it was every other thing I enjoyed at the time. Some series, some games, just stuff that I generally liked, really putting down on paper of the ideas I had with them. And I remember sharing this one drawing to the leader one time, showing him what I made, and it was a drawing of Goku as a zombie. And he immediately criticized it and didn't let me have fun with it because he said it wasn't even logical and it made no sense for that to happen. It was one of those drawings where I was like, oh, I want to draw it because I like being able to draw something that's a cool little thing to do in my style. But he didn't even let me have fun with it and did not let me enjoy the kind of stuff I wanted to draw, and shutting it down just because it wasn't even something that makes sense to him. One of the worst things you could do is just not let someone have fun with the things that they're making and crushing their happiness. So that one really hurt back then. And for this next one, we get into my YouTube passion, my passion for making videos back in those years. I was someone in those years who wanted to put in the effort to make myself resemble my inspirations and who I enjoyed at the time, which was solely Markiplier for the most part, but some other people. And since Markiplier would do Photoshop to place his face in his own thumbnails, I thought, you know what? For some of my gaming videos I'm doing, I want to do that too. And I did end up doing that. In my first actual channel, the videos still remain of showing that on the layer thumbnails. You could see that there. I actually put in the effort to do what I wanted to do and make myself resemble the quality of the YouTubers that I looked up to. So in that time, I shared a finished thumbnail image to the leader and my other friends, and I shared to them this one that was ended up being used on the archives playlist. It was for the Soulcraft videos, where I basically did a Markiplier style thumbnail of placing my face in the thumbnail for the character and really having fun with it, if that's what you want to see it as, because it was fun. And when I showed them that and showed that to the leader, his response was saying that I should not go through with this thumbnail and putting it on YouTube because with me being a teenager and me making it in the time that I'm making it, I'm going to be made fun of if I follow the Markiplier route that I wanted to take. And that made no sense to me at the time. That made absolutely no sense of being like, who would make fun of me? I'm just making something that other kids my age are probably doing as well right now on YouTube. And for the time, it made sense for me to just be like, well, I see no problem with this. So I ended up doing it. I ended up ignoring the leader's words and going forward and saying, I'm going to continue making these thumbnails the way I want and making them look the way that I want them to look, all fun and hilarious to me. Because I didn't want anyone or anything stopping me from really putting out what I wanted to put out there on the internet, even if they were my friends saying that. The last one is something that generally felt surprising to me to see what the result was. I was someone who loved sharing my love for Nintendo at the time to my friends, just here and there. I grew up with just liking the charm of how Mario came across. He was one of my favorites. And even though I didn't have any Nintendo consoles for a long time growing up, I just liked the charm that Mario had. And even though I didn't own anything of his, it didn't mean I couldn't be a Nintendo fan with having an Xbox and stuff. So when I just talked about my love for Nintendo stuff to my friends from time to time, I think it was the leader who mainly just was like, all right, we get it. You love Mario and all that. And I got their point of view. I understood that it was a little much on them. But from what I talked about in the first video and how I basically had to get onto their love for FNAF just to be able to really be in with them, when you're shoving FNAF down my throat so much to where I have to consume it with you, you give me no other choice. And then I'm someone who has to be told to quiet down about Nintendo when you're all FNAF fans. It was just something that I didn't know was going to be so surprising how I ended up at the time, because I could see right through the kind of BS of that whole thing. And now we move on to separate events that can't really be categorized on their own and are mostly just dumb. Others. This next one is just stupid, and it reflects my overall thought process of how I just am really thoughtful and care about people's feelings. One of my friends in that friend group was the only Nintendo fan that I had with me in that group. And I enjoyed the thought of being able to sit down with him somewhere else where he kind of enjoyed his time. And that was the outside area of tables outside the cafeteria. I was thinking it was going to be real fun. It was nice outside, wind blowing and stuff. And I was thinking, man, I would love to do this with him. It's awesome. And then he told me only one thing that would result from it. He told me, if you eat with me outside, my brother's going to come out and he's going to roast you because that's what he does to everybody that he doesn't know when he meets them for the first time. And I thought it was weird to put together and be like, okay, I'll just work with this. And once it actually happened, it was even worse than I expected. So I'm eating my food, enjoying myself outside with him. And then his brother comes out the doors. Then he sees me and says, hey, who the F is this? And then starts going on one roast after another, moving on from one facial feature of mine to another facial feature of mine or something. Saying my nose is like a staircase or something, and then saying something else afterwards. And then all I gotta do is laugh it off and let it pass. And at the time, I convinced myself that, hey, it was whatever. I even told my brother, hey, my friend's brother roasted me and he said all these different things. And my brother said, what the heck? Why would you just take it like that? Why would you take it? And I was like, well, it was funny. It wasn't really bad. And I told myself that to convince myself everything was all right. I wasn't someone who was really sensitive to the littlest of teasing and anything like roasting when you're going to throw it at me. But I would be someone who definitely, under their breath or in their mind, just contemplates it later and is like, man, what the heck is up with that? That was some bullshit. That was stupid. What the heck even was that? And it would be that way probably at home because that's how I was at the time. I bottled that in and thought it was really ridiculous because I was just trying to enjoy myself outside with lunch. It made no sense to me to be getting that thrown at you and then finding out how you're just going to move on from it. So from what I got from that is that roasting is stupid. Roasting makes no sense. And I think the fact that his brother thought at the time that I'm going to roast people and they had to put up with it because it's in my nature and it's who I am, it's the worst thing that you could ever do to somebody. That is the stupidest kind of person you can be. You just got the choice to be an asshole. And to people who don't even know you, people who have to meet you for the first time and that's how you want to come across to them. It's the worst. And it makes me think about how fast someone had to adjust to maturing themselves in adulthood and straightening themselves out so that they could be a functioning working adult by the time we're at right now. And the last example that I want to give is something that hit me really hard. I know these other ones might have hit me hard, but this one sucked at the time because it was about me getting a humiliating moment around my crush at the time. So in these years, my friend group had two girls in it, and one of the girls ended up quickly becoming a crush of mine. It was my first actual crush towards someone I knew, and it gave me all sorts of feelings opening up about how it felt to really feel warm inside being around her and getting to enjoy her company every day. And in my freshman year, the one class I had the direct interaction with her in was my art class. I had a group table with her and two other classmates. And to explain why I had art class, my enjoyments pretty much explain themselves. I mean, me wanting to draw so much, getting the opportunity to actually use an art class year by year at that point to enjoy what I love doing while fitting in surrounding classes. It was nice. But one of the people at my table was another girl, and she would share girl compliments to my crush at the time. One of those things that became really hard for me to work with was her complimenting my crush's chest. My crush had a habit of stretching, leaning back in her chair and putting her head back to stretch, and then the girl at a table would point out that her chest was pretty big. Of course, my crush would say thanks, and then I would just be quiet and act like nothing's happening because I'm someone in her same friend group who's very respectful of her and want to do everything I can to just stay normal. But at some point, I kind of spoke up to them and was telling the girl at our table that this feels a little hard for me to work with a lot of the time with being someone who respects her in our friend group. And just that simple thing was leading to the girl directing attention towards me and wanting to tease me out of nowhere about liking them talking about that. Saying something like, oh, well, you like that, don't you? And when I'm denying it and saying, no, what the heck, no, she starts to want to analyze me and thinking that I'm trying to hide it, putting me on the spot and saying further, yeah, you like that, you like that. It was hard enough with me being someone who comes across a little awkward and nerdy and into my own little subjects, but to put me on the spot, back me into a corner and saying that I enjoy when they're talking about my crush's great chest size, it feels so messed up to me to try and give me this shameful image and not thinking about what it can do to me to put me down and mess with my emotions is just really messed up, especially in high school. And it was so bad that it stuck with me into the next class afterward, which was PE. And on that day, we were shooting hoops into the basketball courts. And when I was shooting hoops, my mind was only fixated on being so intensely stuck up about that whole thing, reflecting on it with so much anger at what she had to do to put me on the spot, and doing that in front of my crush with teasing me so hard. This was a moment of me thinking that it was probably one of the worst things you could do to me and my feelings at the time. And humiliation just puts people down, and you never know if they're going to be stuck with it for years to come. So, those are all the tall tales of the rest of the details on what I went through in those years by that friend group and what I had to endure. I hope you all enjoy my expression of storytelling. And if you want to tell me about similar experiences or anything else about what I should do next, leave them in the comments below for how you enjoyed the video. I hope this video taught you a lot and gave you a lot to think about. And until the next storytelling ACN, we up.